about magazines and subscription space? Is Stanza going to be, I'm actually not sure, is Stanza currently carrying them or working on that?
Yeah, through our Feedbooks partnership or relationship, we have aggregated RSS feeds for lots of magazines and newspapers. Those are aggregated RSS feeds. So in some cases you only get headlines, in some cases you only get summaries, in some cases you only get first paragraphs, but in some cases you get full content without images. So yes, we are going to do more and more with magazines and newspapers, and we're starting to see some activity on that front. We've never done a great job of marketing the newspapers and magazines because it's not great. You know, people get frustrated with it because they expect the full content, they only see it in summary. But the usage of that has been shocking how popular it is. So it's something we definitely recognize and want to do something with.
What advice do you have for sort of younger people in the publishing industry?
Yeah, this is so nice. You guys are so much younger than what I'm used to speaking to. I'm usually the youngest person in the room.
An old fogey.
I'm an old fogey. So much more than you know. You know, I think you have to, I think the biggest challenge is that publishing is going to look to younger people to keep up. You know, heck, it's hard enough to keep up when you know that some of the technologies and some of what's going on. I think publishing is going to look to younger people for that. I think I get myself in trouble. I know there's reporters here too. But a lot of, think of it this way, right? I think there were some statistics that came out relatively recently that the Kindle was very much for the older generation. And then if you look at kind of who's reading on an iPhone, and you look at some of the titles on the iPhone, it looks like it's skewing a little bit more younger. So right there, that tells you kind of, I would use that as almost a proxy of what we're talking about, what I'm talking about here. You're going to have to figure out how to address that old group because they spend money. But at the same time, how do you attract the younger, you know, my daughter, right? I mean, I'll watch my daughter use my phone, and I've shown her 2 or 3 things, and she's been doing it for like a year and a half now. I mean, she looks like the commercials. Her motion, I work for an iPhone app company, essentially, and her motions are better than mine. And I think how you address this group that's used to reading on a screen, that's used to, I live really close to the University of Texas campus, and every 3rd kid has an iPhone or an iPod Touch. You guys are going to be the ones that are going to tell the people up there, you know, what that audience wants, what that audience needs, what the expectations are. I'll give one example. Kelley Blue Book, right? You know, used to be this you know, physical book with a bunch of tables. Does that make any sense to convert that into the exact same thing as an ebook?
What is the, why don't you explain what it's like?
Kelley Blue Book is a used car listing book which tells you how much, you know, a car in fair condition, Toyota Corolla, 1996, should sell, what that price point should be. That's not a book. That's an application where you tick off 4 different boxes or 4 different drop downs, and you get a number at the end of it. And then you change one of them and you see, okay, if it was in good condition, this is it. It's an app. Should a cookbook be a book? You know, if you want to ask some really interesting questions, those are, you know, should a bird, whatever, ornithologist book be a book? Or should it be some sort of app? But I mean, the iPhone already did this commercial, right, where you can hear the sound of the bird and everything else. But those are the types of questions I think that, you know, I think you have to start thinking about it, about what is a book, what is a publisher's role in that. And then there's neat stuff like, how do you incorporate user-generated content? So take the cookbook example. A cookbook should have video, right? Like, I stink at cooking, and I don't know, you know, what does whisking mean? How fast do I whip? What did, you know, we went to the internet to figure out how to swaddle my kid when you know, he was born, and found a video on YouTube, and okay, all right, got that. A lot of this stuff can be user-generated content. With the concept of voting, and talk to her about this. She's rocks at this stuff. You know, with the concept of voting, all of a sudden now, you know, you can get really good video, right? That people say is the best video for showing you how to whisk something. How do you marry those two? This is, I think, going to fall on people under the age of 35. Not the gray hairs upstairs. As to how this is all going to play out. And I think this is where your competitive advantage is. So I would think about taking advantage of that competitive advantage. We have in Austin, we have you know, everyone hears about how bad publishing is doing right? And all the layoffs and, you know, the Black Wednesdays and the Black Fridays and all this other stuff. And there's a publishing company in Austin called Greenleaf Books. They have 300 titles. It's a tiny little company. 4 of them are New York Times bestsellers. They focused on 2 areas. They have this formula, and they just keep pounding the button. And as long as they keep Clint away from kind of getting too crazy, Clint Greenleaf, the man who created Bambino Balls as a line of children's clothing while he's running the publishing company. But as long as they keep him away from getting too crazy and follow that formula, they've got something going on there. And I think there's opportunities for lots and lots of success. And I would guess I've never met a person in that company that's probably more than 2 years older than me. Most of them are in their 20s. So I think there's going to be lots and lots of neat opportunities that are going to present themselves within all this chaos.
Formerly of Greenleaf Book Group. But
That's right.
No, I was just going to say, like, that brings up an interesting point. Like, so much of publishing has historically been centralized in New York. Do you think with all that's happening with technology and user generation and with, I mean, Books on Board you listed up there, that's Austin too. I mean, do you think that so much of it is going to, like, decentralize from a physical place?
I would love to say yes, but I know how much time the Books on Board guys, the Greenleaf guys, and all of those guys spend up here. Believer Digital guys, also another Austin-based company. You know, I think you're going to have areas of, I think what you're going to find is you can't justify the cost structure, right? Just very bluntly put, I mean, this property right here is worth a boatload of money. You're starting from behind already in New York. You've got to balance that with you have the connections to all of the people. So I think there's going to be a rationalization. The rationalization's happening, right? All the layoffs, all of that stuff that's happening is happening. I think you're going to see more of that. But you know, the cost structure in Austin, what I've been told is that people in publishing don't make great salaries. In Austin, those salaries look a lot prettier than they do in New York. So for many, many different aspects, there is going to be, I think, there are economic drivers to push things outside of New York, outside of London. At the end of the day, though, I mean, the conferences are here. All of the other stuff is here. So I think there's going to be a balance in that. I think you're going to find, look at movies, right? I think that's a great proxy. Hollywood still exists. Hollywood still is huge. Hollywood has become very hit-oriented, right? And it's the huge, you know, the huge water worlds of the world. There's a huge.
Good example, dude.
Well, no, I mean, that was my. I think one that didn't do well on purpose. But then you're starting to see the Shack in publishing, right? Out of nowhere. I don't know who the publisher is, but I understand it's a very small publisher. I think you're going to see more and more stuff like that happening. The Greenleafs, the guys in the Northeast, the guys in the Northwest. I think you're going to see more and more stuff like that happen. I think it's going to be a balancing act. Yeah, I mean, actually, you probably have a pretty good perspective given you've done the jump from small to big.
Yeah, I don't know, but I agree with what you say. I mean, there is a lot of centrality still here as well as connections and stuff that goes on. You know, I kind of came up here for the same reason that you came up for TOC, you know, for the same reason I came up for BPA. So.
Yeah, tired of that JetBlue flight.